Your Excellency, I remember not too long ago, maybe 10 years ago, they would refer to the housing issue of Saudi Arabia as a crisis, meaning there was more demand than supply. That's no longer the case today.
I remember the 90s or 80s, once you apply for a housing loan, the wait list was something like 15 to 20 years to get your turn. And just a few weeks ago, NSC, which I'm a chairman of, delivered homes a year and a half ahead of schedule. Just think of how incredible this is. And it's not just about the company doing a good job. Yes, that's true, but also it's everything that goes along with that. It's proper supply chain. It's building material being available. It's the land being allocated properly. It's the services leading up to the land being completed. All this was done a year and a half ahead of schedule. This is incredible. And to see people moving into their first home is really one of the most satisfying things you can see in your lifetime. And I always tell my team, don't think of this as a job. It's really not a job. You have a privilege, and I repeat, it's a privilege to work for the government because of the number of people you can serve and the good you can do for the country.
Years in the private sector, and then today you're working for the government, Deputy Minister of Housing and Municipalities. Did you ever foresee that your career would pan that way? Because it's like a fairy tale story.
Well, yes and no. Yeah, no, I never had an intention to join the government pre-2016. Then the vision was launched in 2016, and I immersed myself in reading it. I took my time. I read it maybe 3 or 4 times, and it was really kind of a milestone moment for me. I realized the depth of the thinking, the ambition of the vision, and really we had I felt very, very optimistic. And that was my first introduction to His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed, was through reading the vision document. And then, yes, it was no before that. After that, I knew without a doubt that I'm going to end up serving the vision, whether it be at the private sector or being a civil servant as I am now. I knew that that's where I was going to end up. I had no doubt. It was kind of leading up to that moment in 2016. I was kind of yearning for a way to give back, and that just made the decision much easier. Although I didn't seek it out, it came to me, but it happened. But I knew it was going to happen.
There's a saying by Rumi that I love, and it goes, "What you are seeking is seeking you." It's deep, that.
Absolutely true.
We're moving beyond, using our past to propel, sharing our culture, nature, heritage, hospitality, progress with the rest of the world. Welcome to our future. Welcome to Saudia, built on big ideas and a passion for change, inspired by heritage and progress, made by dreams and determination. We exemplify it all. Come find your place in it, with us. Our future starts now. Saudia. This is how we fly.
2 reactions to what you said. First thing, well, a reaction and a question. The first thing, which is a reaction, is that I'm noticing a lot of people, their first choice is government, or PIF, which is government, or Wazarat. And that wasn't the case 10 years ago. You would probably think private sector first. And then if you don't get a job there, okay, let's see how else I can contribute. But it's quite refreshing that on the top of the priority of fresh grads today is, I want to get a job at a ministry. Ministry of Sports is popular. Ministry of Culture is popular. Ministry of Hajj, I know a lot of people in Ministry of Hajj, and they absolutely adore their work there. Have you noticed a shift in the landscape over the past 10 years?
Absolutely. And it's really, again, a tribute to the vision. It's where else? What we're going through right now is nothing short of a renaissance, driven by the vision. In all aspects, what you mentioned in terms of Ministry of Culture, Sports, Entertainment, healthcare, education, and everything is moving at a very rapid pace. And of course, people want to be a part of this. It'll be surprising if it was the other way around. Absolutely true. And I think a lot of people went through what I went, but I had the experience in the private sector. Mm-hmm. But seeing the vision and Prince Mohammed's approach to it is just incredible. And I think this is what's driving more Saudis to be engaged with the government sector.
Did you ever have an eye for, or a love for, or a passion for the whole housing/municipality sector? Like growing up, did you ever feel that, this could be better if I was a part of this? This is what I would do. Was that ever like in the back of your mind?
Not really. This is the last place I thought I'd end up is municipalities and housing. But getting things done in a better way, for sure, everywhere. And always there is this romantic view when you're outside looking in that I can do this. But it's really challenging to get things moving at a government level. It's not easy because you have to maintain proper governance. You have to do it in an institutional way. It's not just kun fayakun, just get it done. Yes, you can with the right leadership, but you have to do it based on some kind of institutional setup that needs to be done the right way. And I think in the municipal sector and housing, it's even more the case than elsewhere because we're dealing with cities. And cities is a life being. It's not a static. It's not a road. It's people driving through that road or walking on that road or living in that area. So it's a very interesting role, and really more than that, it's fulfilling because once you get things done, despite some of the challenges, you see the impact immediately. It's not something that you have to wait 10, 15 years to see it. And I think the success that housing has gone through from 2017 to 2020 until now, and the municipal transformation that we're actually in the middle of, is going significantly better than expected.
You say that it's challenging to run a country, to run a ministry. I struggle to run a podcast with 4 members of staff. So I can't even imagine what a municipality will go through when they're just in charge of a city or a ministry that's in charge of so many different touch points in the country, or a country that has in a generation, no, not even in a generation, in the past 7 years has completely reversed the course or the trajectory in where we're heading. Because, Your Excellency, I remember not too long ago, maybe 10 years ago, they would refer to the housing issue of Saudi Arabia as a crisis, meaning there was more demand than supply. That's no longer the case today. Correct me if I'm wrong.
100%. I was going to touch upon this a bit later, but it's good you brought it up. I remember in the 90s or 80s, once you apply for a housing loan, the wait list was something like 15 to 20 years to get your turn. Just a few weeks ago, NSC, which I'm a chairman of, delivered homes a year and a half ahead of schedule. Just think of how incredible this is. And it's not just about the company doing a good job. Yes, that's true, but also it's everything that goes along with that. It's proper supply chain. It's building material being available. It's the land being allocated properly. It's the services leading up to the land being completed. All this was done a year and a half ahead of schedule. This is incredible. And to see people moving into their first home is really one of the most satisfying things you can see in your lifetime. And I always tell my team, don't think of this as a job. It's really not a job. It's you have a privilege, and I repeat, it's a privilege to work for the government because of the number of people you can serve and the good you can do for the country. And it's something to give back. And it's not something that, wallah, this is a 9-to-5 job. It's not. It's a complete mind shift. This is what I am right now. It's not what I do.
We're going to get into NHC, the National Housing Company that you're a chairman of later on, as you mentioned. Just so we don't get ahead of ourselves, can you give me a background on your early days career path? I know you studied in the States, so a little synopsis for those who don't know much about your early days.
Well, I actually attended high school and university in the US, and then we moved back to Saudi in the late 80s, and I was in banking for about 4 years. Then I moved to fast-moving consumer goods in PepsiCo, spent about 7 years in PepsiCo. Then went back to the US, did my postgraduate work, and worked then after this in consulting. I worked in New York, in London, in Istanbul for a while. And I then moved back to Saudi, went back into banking, and I've been in investment banking ever since. So since 2003, I've been doing investment banking until I joined the ministry in 2020.
Were you headhunted, or did you apply for the job?
I was headhunted by His Excellency, Majd al-Higir. I actually didn't know who he was. I got a call, and I immediately accepted to see him. And that's what I told you. I knew I was going to end up there in the government. That was my first, I was offered the job as an advisor, and I immediately took it, knowing the challenges that we will face in terms of the municipal sector particularly. But it was a challenge that I was ready to take on. And His Excellency is just an incredible leader. Honestly, it was a no-brainer. Just sitting with him for that hour, I knew that I would want to be associated with him. The success he's done in the housing sector is nothing short of a miracle, to be honest with you. I mentioned the story before. And now he's doing the same thing with the municipal sector.
Is he the current minister?
Yes.
Of housing? You know, that's really encouraging for Saudis who are in the private sector to know that if you do great at what you do, ministries are watching. You can easily be headhunted. Very, very encouraging.
100%. And there is a shortage of talent in the government sector. Always looking for fresh, young, experienced, across the board talent is really sought after in the government sector, especially with all the things that are happening. Imagine, we're hosting the World Cup in 2034, Expo in 2030, and all the other mega events that are happening in the country. This needs talent.
Can I throw in Winter Olympics?
Winter Olympics as well.
I mean, who would have thought?
Winter Olympics in Saudi Arabia.
In Neom.
No.
I mean, if somebody said that to you 4 years ago, you would laugh them out of the room. And now it's a reality. If I'm not mistaken, 27 or 29. I'll fact check that. Anyway, in the next 3 years, we'll be hosting a Winter Olympics, Jabal al-Lawz up in Neom. And that shows you that, you know, you always hear that al-mustahil laysa Saudi, the impossible is not Saudi, but that's not just a buzzword or a hot take. It's actual facts.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, Muhammad, it's really a kind of a confirmation that the vision is working and working very well.
Yes, sir.
It is evidence that this is happening. I mean, you cannot have a World Cup without having the proper infrastructure for World Cup. You cannot have an expo unless you have the proper setup for the expo. So it's really refreshing. We know internally that we're doing well, but it's good that the whole world now is witnessing the capabilities of Saudi Arabia under the leadership of His Royal Highness, honestly.
For many years, it was like, yeah, right, you guys have a vision. Yeah, right, you guys want a World Cup. Yeah, right, you guys. But I actually think we have the attention of the world now.
100%, without a doubt. As His Highness said in his Fox interview, It is the story of the
21st century. Yeah.
It's happening. We're living it, and we feel it day in and day out. It's not an idea. It's a reality right now.
100%. Back to the efforts that go into urban development, things that are under the municipalities' mandate. You hear of quality of life being synonymous with Vision 2030. Quality of life is one of the major pillars. There's even an entity called the Quality of Life Program. What are municipalities doing to ensure that the quality of life in Saudi improves year on year? It was probably one of our weaknesses. I'm thinking green spaces, public parks, bicycle tracks. I'm noticing in Jeddah more green spaces, more bicycle tracks than ever. Is this something that is being rolled out across municipalities across the country? Where do we stand?
Absolutely. But before I answer, I just want to take a step back to tell you how we got here. We started the ministry that we took a built environment. It wasn't green. It was so much easier if we had to build cities from scratch, but we don't. We have existing cities that we have built. And in the 70s and 80s, the whole purpose of the government is to provide infrastructure. We had an influx, growth in population that is unprecedented. It was, I think, 8 times the global average of terms of population growth, from 3 million to 30 million. Everybody needed to live somewhere, needed to get to work. So the whole mandate of the ministry at the time was to provide infrastructure. So they built roads for cars, they built storm drainage, they expanded cities much more than required. At the same time that this happened, the population growth, actually city density dropped by a factor of 2. So that means that we just build cities that way over capacity of what is needed. So this is what we came to, and there wasn't really a focus on proper urban planning. So this was done in a very massive way, and it's not wrong, it's not right. It happened because that's the requirement of the time. We came in with a different thinking. We have a vision that required us to think differently. Especially what you mentioned about quality of life, walkability, green space. All these are vision targets, by the way. So we said, okay, how will we change an existing environment that we live in? And we created many initiatives. I'm going to focus on a couple because it's relevant to what we're talking about. The first is Project Joy, which we set up. We started talking about it in 2022, launched it in 2023. And this is to expand to do urban interventions where we improve walkability, as we said, and public spaces, and improve green space through parks. The first what we did was we set up standards and guidelines. We don't want to build random parks or intervene in build environments in improper ways. So we had public realm guidelines that were set up, created, and approved. And this is the basis of every park you see now, is based on very, very clear standards, both in terms of design and build. And we launched the program. I'm happy to report today, just now I got the final number. In terms of green space, we've done 13 plus million square meters of green space. And in 2 years, if you just look at this number and compare it to things we know, it's actually 4 times the size of Central Park, 10 times Hyde Park in 2 years. And we're going to continue to do so. And this is not considering all the mega projects that are going on, even the projects in housing that have huge parks. It's not adding this. This is completed, opened for public parks that are existing right now.
So not including King Salman Park?
No. It's not open. So this is only open parks functioning parks that are open and people are visiting.
Okay.
In terms of the urban intervention, which we spoke about walkability, there was a huge mandate for us, and we've done 650 interventions across Saudi Arabia. This includes from basically increasing the sidewalk and putting some greenery for walkability, to doing what we did in the seafront in Jeddah and in the eastern region, where we have cycling lanes. Jeddah at one point had no sidewalks. Like somebody just said, sidewalks are not good for cars, so they removed all the sidewalks. Now in Jeddah alone, you have about 60 kilometers of walkable streets, safely walkable streets. And the plan is to do about another, I think, 50 kilometers of this. We're going to connect the northern Corniche all the way to the southern Corniche. So you can go from البلد لنبحر مشي ولا بالسيكل.
That's the plan.
That's the plan. And I have no doubt that we'll do it, because the progress is actually, we're ahead of where we're supposed to be at this point. And in the eastern region, same thing. And anywhere you go across Saudi, you will notice. In Hayel, we have programs with the quality of life to do full districts of interventions, not just one walk. We take a community and we build it. Same in Riyadh and in Jeddah. Hayy al-Rawda is going to be a landmark project for Saudi Arabia in terms of how we upgrade the infrastructure of a district and connect it together through walkability. And this has, Muhammad, so many benefits that it's not just for people to walk. It has benefits for small businesses. It has benefits for land and real estate owners. Some benchmarks suggest that there will be an increase of 20%, not 1 year, year on year, in some of the real estate that goes through these kind of interventions, especially the significant ones we're talking about. So this is one program, only one of many that we're working on, which is Project Joy. The other thing we're working on is how do we improve the aesthetic of the city? Okay, we can do interventions, but the building is still going to be there. We have an amazing country, large footprint, and different in many ways. If you go to the south in Asir, the north in Hayel or Tabuk, the east, each one of these regions have its own heritage, its own kind of identity in terms of architecture. How do we preserve this? How do we make sure that we don't standardize building that every city looks the same, which has happened in the 80s and 90s? This is why we're doing architectural guidelines to emphasize and validate the existing architecture that we have and make sure that it's a major part of what we do in Saudi Arabia. Preserving our culture, our heritage, our unique architecture is really a game changer for us. And I believe that this will be the most significant impact that the ministry and DASC, the Development Authority Support Center, will have on the country under the leadership of His Royal Highness. It's a massive initiative. He directed us to do it, and alhamdulillah, we're almost complete, and it should be launched soon, inshallah.
What do you think of pedestrianized streets? I'm looking at a few that come to mind, actually. There's one in London, just off King's Road, Pavilion Road. That was a street that's been pedestrianized. Al-Ula, there was a street that now has been pedestrianized. There seems to be success that comes with shutting down a road and opening it to just footfall. I don't think I've seen any in Jeddah, at least. Is that something that has ever been a thought?
By the way, not just in London and in Ula, Barcelona has done an amazing job. In Europe, they have a lot of pedestrian streets. I think the time will come for that once it comes at a stage where things are complete. And Pavilion Road, I know very well. I go there every day. But also there comes issues with it. Too many tourists. It impacts the residents of the area. But it's a great approach to look at urbanism and creating this 5-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute city, which is really the core of everything we do. And going back to the green space, in 2020, we have a target of 800 meters away from a green space. Each resident should be. The percentage of residents that were 800 meters away was about 59% in 2020. This year, 2024, we'll finish around 66.6%. So we increased accessibility. And why 800 meters? It's an average of 10-minute walk. If you're an average walker, if you're a quick walker, it's less. If you're a slow walker, it's a bit more. But 10 minutes is the right number. And this is really a part of this of the urbanism that we're doing in the municipal sector.
There is a street in Jeddah that is begging to be pedestrianized. I'm not going to say pedestrianized because it's too extreme. You can't just shut traffic flow, but it doesn't need to be 4 lanes. And I'm so glad you came on the show so I can recommend it. If I can just get be a spark for the idea. Abdul Maqsood Khoja. Are there plans? It doesn't need to be 4 lanes. 2 would work.
قلت لك حي الروضة.
حي الروضة, yeah.
That's the first street we're gonna attack.
That was the street.
Yeah, that's the main one. That's what sparked the idea. So we're definitely reducing. I'll send you some pictures of how the street will look. It definitely will be reduced to 2 lanes.
It's very popular today as is. I can imagine how much more popular it will be.
And it's the perfect, you pick the right street. It's the perfect street for this. Not fully pedestrian. We thought about it, by the way, to make it fully. But then there's accessibility too. There's a lot of residential areas there. You need to access. It's very hard to do. So we decided, I think, 1 or 2 lanes and with ample parking, wider sidewalks. But that's actually the plan with one of the plans that we're doing full district. So we're not just taking Abdul Maqsood Khoja, we're taking the full area and look at how to upgrade the infrastructure and make it really more suitable for walkability and cycling and e-mobility and all the things that we've been preaching at the ministry.
Well, this is refreshing. I love hearing the active role that the municipality is taking to, again, like it's coming down to quality of life. How can we make the quality of life for the Saudi in whatever city you live in as best as it can be? Medina has been getting a lot of press on the before, and I see it on Twitter, the before and after images. And it is a complete game changer as to what the municipality in Medina did there in terms of beautifying the walking spaces, the green spaces, the bicycle routes, etc. I would say, on the subject of standardization, Mykonos or other Greek islands would not have attracted so much attention, especially with American tourists and Saudi tourists, if they didn't have a standard building code. Can we expect something? Because you hear a lot of people complain that, oh God, that house really doesn't suit the neighborhood. Are any efforts going to be put towards the standardization of the building codes in Saudi cities?
Absolutely. But going back to what I said earlier, it has to be part of the heritage in the city. We can't have a standard that matches houses in Jeddah as in Riyadh. Riyadh has its own very distinct heritage, and so does Jeddah. So yes, there will be codes that define what are the architectural guidelines in each one of those cities and standardize it 100%. I mean, there is no reason in the world that any house in Saudi should have Roman columns or Corinthian columns, or it's just ridiculous. It has nothing to do with who we are. So to take this and put it in an environment like this looks odd, and as you were saying, this doesn't belong here.
Or to be fluorescent pink, as some of the houses I've seen in my neighborhood.
Allah, don't please. This gives me heartburn.
Our pain is your pain.
This gives me heartburn when we talk. لا, بالعكس. And this is what I was talking about earlier. This is the biggest, largest initiative that we're working on, and I think it will transform Saudi cities in a way that hasn't been seen before.
So there are efforts being put towards an urban code design. It's not something that is a build whatever you want right now. There is a study to maintain the quality of standardization.
This is a massive initiative, by the way. We've been working on this for the last 2 years under the direct supervision of His Royal Highness. And we're almost there. And it applies to the whole kingdom, by the way, not just specific areas.
جديد، اكسر الروتين مع أطباقنا الجديدة من بيتزا هات جدة. بيتزا هات جدة، ذوق طعم الثقة معنا.
Exciting times. we met yesterday briefly, and you mentioned how, or you emphasized the importance of what role the private sector can play with governments and public sector in general. Is there an example that you can provide on how the ministry does collaborate with private sector companies and what that relationship is like?
Well, in the ministry, luckily, when we talk about the municipal sector in particular, we have, in 2020, we launched a platform called Furas, which is a platform to engage investment through municipal land with the private sector. At the time, we had 4,000 opportunities that were uploaded to the platform. Today, we have 45,000. We do 22 billion of existing opportunities on the Forest platform. We had scaled up. I mean, I always like to say the trick to everything you do is scalability. How can we scale this up? And we scaled up our investment arm in a significant way over the last 4 years. And this is really just, in the end, the purpose of it is the economic development of the cities. It's nothing else. Fees and fines have stayed even, zero growth. The whole growth in revenues for the municipal sector came from investment and of municipal lands. And we have great examples in the seafront in the eastern region, in Riyadh, in Jeddah, of how we made municipal land go to work for the city versus for anything else. So yes, we had scaled up in a significant way our investment and our participation with the private sector. In another term, we do a lot of privatization work as well. Today, all of our health and market inspection is privatized. It's done by the private sector. We're moving towards privatizing some of our waste management collection work. It started in Jeddah through performance-based contracts. And the target is to 70% of municipal services to be privatized by 2030. I think we're now at about 25%, going to 30%, inshallah, in 2025.
Something occurred to me a few weeks ago, and I realized, I was in Al-Ula, and I noticed that on the subject of waste management, that the garbage bins there, like has a cover on it. And I was like, yeah, in the States too, there's a cover on it, and each house has its own garbage bin. Over here, it's more of a communal garbage bin that isn't covered, and it's just not a good look. Is that something that the municipality can one day change and maybe make bins allocated to each house that has a cover on it?
Absolutely, it has to. It's not a choice. We must do this, because if you want to get away from diverting your waste to landfills and do a lot of recycling, sorting has to start at base. And this is what the different bins are for. So you have a bin for paper, for plastic, for municipal solid waste, and it's something we need to do and need to do urgently. And this is one of the first steps I was talking about earlier, is performance-based contracts, which will force the contractor to do these things. And having said that, Saudi Arabia is advanced in terms of waste collection and cleanliness. I mean, we're one of the few countries that have daily waste pickup. Good or bad, it's maybe it's not cost efficient, but it serves the citizen well. And we have our satisfaction with city cleanliness in Saudi cities is ranked considerably high. I think in the high 60s, but top countries are in the low 70s, by the way. So we're getting there. We're in the second quartile of G20 countries in terms of city cleanliness. So we're making a lot of progress in waste management, but not as rapid as we would like. But for me personally, I was talking to my team before the end of the year. The two files I'm going to be focused on in 2025, one of them is waste management.
I hope in the near future we can see fines for those who litter, because I have seen way too much littering in recent memory. And what breaks my heart is that you'd see littering right next to a garbage bin. And I asked a few friends, I'm like, are people fined for littering? It's a problem. It's something that foreigners, one of the first things they say is that they love everything about the country. But what is up with the littering? Especially when you hear how plastic biodegrades in about 100 years. I wish culturally we can be more conscious to protecting the environment and throwing our litter in the trash. And I think the only way people can learn is that as you are fined for speeding, as you are fined for parking illegally, you need to be fined for littering.
Yes. And also, other than fines, there is other ways to tackle this problem. I think more than fines is awareness and kind of getting the citizen engaged. And I think part of the work we're doing with Project Joy is to create ownership of the communities people live in. If the park is an extension of your home, you don't litter in your home, right?
Nope.
And this is kind of the mentality we want to reach. Fines should come and will play handy as a deterrent, but it's not the first thing we need to do. We need to have people and residents own their community. This is my street. The cleanliness of my street is a reflection of me. And this is an awareness that will continue to go. And in any case, it's a culture that has been built, and still, surprisingly, it's the same. The city was built for cars. So there's no community. Shift in walls. See the walls, the fences, how high they are. Your house is your house. Everything else is outside. Now fences are coming down. People are going to parks. If you go anywhere in Saudi, not just in Jeddah, anywhere. I was in Tabuk last month, in Hyatt, in the eastern region. You see people in parks in amazing numbers in the morning, at night, and the parks remain clean. Maybe not 100%, but clean, much better than we were 3 years ago, because it's a place where they want to entertain themselves. Mm-hmm. People litter in the street because they don't feel the street belongs to them. Mm. But if you are part of that community, if this is your road, if this is my community, you feel an affinity to where you live, of course you're going to keep it clean. Mm. And I 100% believe in this.
By the way, we have it in us. I remember in World Cup 22 in Qatar, there were videos that went viral of the Japanese fans cleaning up their section. Guess what happened after the Saudi-Argentina game, which we won 2-1, I'd like to add. Saudis were cleaning up their section of the stands. And that was so nice to see. So we have it in us.
100%.
You're right. I think the message just needs to be sent. It doesn't have to be there'll be no need to fine if it's part of just the way we operate. That's not something we should do, so don't do it. We have it in it. We have it in us for sure.
100%. And I think the Saudi citizen or the Saudi resident. Now you see there's a love. Even visitors love the country. Friends of mine from Italy spent New Year's in Al-Ula.
Wow.
People are visiting, and every single person that comes again and has nothing but good things to say about Saudi Arabia.
Correct.
And this is it. This is what we need to do. I think it's happening.
Yeah. NHC, you're the chairman of the National Housing Committee, and you gave me a stat yesterday on where it was 4 years ago and where it is today. Can you highlight some of the key achievements that you and the team have achieved so far?
I think NSC is part of the ecosystem that His Excellency Majid Al-Hagari created to resolve the housing issue, as he referred to it before. The supply side is handled by NSC. Since 2019, the ownership rate in Saudi have improved from 48%. 2024, we're going to close at 64%, ahead of the year-to-date vision milestone. And by 2030, we'll hit at 70%, and we are sure we will do it.
70% of Saudis owning their homes.
Yes. And this is something that was even beyond the dream back in the 90s and early 2000s.
What was it in the 90s? 70% not owning, I would imagine, if not bigger, a bigger number.
100%.
Complete reverse.
Yeah, inshallah. It's a big reversal, and it has done, like I was mentioning earlier, not through the government spending money on housing as it happened before. It's done by creating the right framework and platform for the private sector to invest. His Excellency focused on fixing the mortgage market. So we set up the Saudi Damanat company, which does kind of guarantees for loans for people that can't afford to do loans. They did the SRC, which is a securitization company. If banks get overstretched with mortgages, then we have the ability to securitize some of these portfolios. All this to create the engine that will kind of drive the home ownership, and has been incredibly successful. I mean, it's a privilege to be I was honored to be nominated to be the chairman, and I think what we did since we took over is we're thinking of ways, how do we now build on the success of NHC, and what's the next 5 years would be like for NHC. And I think there our focus will be more on kind of keeping up with what the vision has created. As we mentioned earlier, the vision, one of the outcomes of the vision is social integration. Women driving, women being part of the workforce. So that changed the built environment in Saudi. I was telling you earlier, everything is connected. Fences that came down, houses are getting smaller, parks are getting bigger. So NSC has to match the citizen or the resident requirement for housing. So in the last project we did in Riyadh for San, green space represented more than 48% of the project. And I am confident that this number will probably increase as new projects come on board, because the focus will be less on quantity, more on quality of these products that we will offer to the citizen. And over the next 5 years, we plan to build another 600,000 units and deliver to Saudi citizens across the kingdom.
Big numbers, mashallah. Would you say that you're the biggest player in the real estate market in Saudi?
Not in Saudi, in the region by far. There is no close second. We are 60% of off-plan sales. Is NSC. 30% of the mortgages in Saudi Arabia is generated by NSC. We contribute 1% of non-oil GDP, non-oil revenue GDP to Saudi Arabia. This is a single company. It's significant. We contribute by 2025 126,000 jobs to the economy. It's a massive play. The NSC is more than just a real estate developer. It's actually a market maker, and the numbers are just continuing to grow. It's a massive company, and they're doing an amazing job. And I think hopefully we will, under the new board, we'll continue to deliver on the successes they've achieved so far.
Do you have a PR company on retainer? Because I haven't seen any press or stats like. Do you just work and build and not make noise about what it is you're doing?
The ambition is much more than what we're doing, and we really don't feel. With all this, I'm proud, but I still think we have a long way to go. We need to do better in everything, single aspect of both the municipal and housing. We're proud of the achievements. We've done amazing things in terms of road quality index. We've improved road quality from the low 50s to the mid 60s now. As citizen satisfaction rates are going up, dependency on government budget have almost by 2027 will be zero. So we're moving in a big way across the board, but we still feel we need to do more. And it's just, I think it's our nature to be less about marketing ourselves and more about showing the results, let the results speak for themselves.
That's very refreshing, because on the contrary, you'd hear of a lot of companies who will go hard on PR, computer generated images of neighborhood, and they haven't hidden the first screw. So it's refreshing that you're focusing, flying under the radar and focusing on delivering projects to the tune of 600,000 units coming up now, and all the units you delivered before, and not too concerned about the PR part of it all. It's refreshing to hear.
Alhamdulillah, this is a culture. It's Personally, I'm not a big PR person, and neither was the company. At the municipal sector, you don't see us gloating about things we've done because we feel like your results should speak for themselves.
I love that. I really do. So you have the ministry, you're vice minister, you have NHC, you have your life. How difficult is it for you to manage those three and maybe more, all moving parts in a way where you can have a healthy work-life balance? How do you do it?
Look, it's challenging. It's not easy, but it's a decision you have to make. It's not something you say, well, I'm gonna go to the gym today. La, you have to maintain it. It has to be part of your life. The way I've done it, and to maintain kind of a regular schedule, is I wake up early. I am up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm at the gym by 6. I get that out of the way, and then I start my day. Whether my day takes me to 10 p.m. or 6 p.m., I'm not worried about getting my exercise done in the evening. So that these 3 hours in the morning is the hours I have to myself. And this has been very beneficial to me personally and to the family. I mean, it's a great approach to really just ensure that these 3 hours you can carve out for yourself. Yeah. And that's been my approach. I'm sure there's different approaches, but this has worked for me. I'm an early riser anyways. It's not like I used to wake up and I just wake up, watch YouTube, and now I wake up and do things with my life versus watching. I used to respond to emails at 4:30 in the morning or watch TV. Now I stopped doing that. I do my personal time and then start work around 7:30, 8. I'm working until whatever the day takes me.
Getting oxygen in your lungs and your blood flowing through your veins as soon as you wake up makes you a completely different person in the office.
Yeah, I tell my kids, and my day is done in these 2 hours. It's I feel refreshed, switched on, and you owe it to the people you work with. You cannot go to the office tired, lazy. Your attention span is not at its full capacity. Once you work out and you do some of the things we do, cold plunge, sauna, exercise, all these things, really it's a game changer. You're alert, you're awake, you're in charge of your time. It's not something, there's no other influence that impacting you. Yeah. I think this has been really fantastic for me. I've been doing this for the last 18 months and it has been a game changer for me, honestly. And I recommend it to anybody that can wake up at that time. Utilize that time to just for yourself, your health, your mental, physical well-being is critical to start your day.
Yeah, you owe it to yourself.
100%.
Yeah. What's something that you'd like to see more of in your daily life? Could be something from at work, career-wise, or something in your personal life. What's something that's missing that you'd like to see more of?
Wallahi, it's difficult. I'd like to see more of. طبعا there's things that it's more on the personal front. See more of my mother. She lives in Jeddah, I live in Riyadh. See more of my kids. But the way kind of I tackle this is really not about the quantity of time, is the quality of time. So when I come to visit Jeddah every 2-3 weeks, I really spend, even if it's an hour, 2 hours with my mother, it's with my mother. I'm not on my phone. I'm not answering calls. I'm spending time with her, asking about her friends, what she does. It's the best. And it's better than a cold plunge. You feel refreshed after that, after these 2 hours. With my kids, it's the same thing. It's really about, they're busy, so they're grown up. So it's not like they're demanding my time. I'm demanding their time because I want to spend time. So the time we spend together, we have discussions about their lives, their career, what they want, their goals, their aspirations. And we try to do that on a regular basis. But other than that, I think we're good.
Yeah. I remember every Thursday we used to go to my grandmother's for lunch, and she passed away about 10 years ago. And the time that we have with these older peoples in our lives, you just don't know how much time you have, so you do want to prioritize that. And Thursday lunch at hers would be a time when we all get together, and around 30 or 40 family members, and we'd go to Nuzla, which is an area of Jeddah that maybe we didn't talk about, but we can touch on that. But the sad part is that when she passed away, the family now no longer has that Thursday lunch. So they really do bring the family together, and you don't know what you have until you lose it. On the subject of Nuzla, I know there were lots of effort that were put towards the issue that we had with random settlement. So Jeddah, Mecca, obviously being a port for those who come for Hajj and Umrah, would stay in the country as illegal settlers, and neighborhoods labeled as random settlement, I don't know if it's a coin I termed or not, has started over the past, let's say, 100 years, until 2, 3, 4 years ago. The mayor of Jeddah, with obviously the help of the powers above, said, this is the time where we are going to put an end to this, because what people don't understand is that firefighters can't enter those neighborhoods. The roads are too tight. A lot of illegal activity, no need to mention what they are, would happen there. Going to my grandmother's house, I would see what Jeddah looks like, and then I would see what that neighborhood looks like. They happen to be on the edge of legal settlement, and it still stands today, her compound. But everything around it, if you want to talk about Al-Grayat or Al-Hindawiya or Al-Karantina, has been flattened. Something to the tune of 10% of Jeddah has been flattened. What kind of efforts went towards doing that? Because I can only, and by the way, the people I know have been compensated handsomely and they've been taken care of, and there are plans to repurpose that area into something that it's a lot better than what it was before by a million miles. Can you just touch on those who don't know why the municipality had to do what they did?
Absolutely. I think also just like you said, it's not a problem that just spurs. It happened because of the things we mentioned earlier, with the rapid expansion of the country, with the urbanization that took place. It's not a Saudi-specific issue. This happens across the world. They have different names to it. Here we call it random settlements or areas. In the US, they call it ghettos. In the East, they call it slums. It's the same thing. There's a rapid urbanization, population growth, and then affordability becomes an issue for housing. And unlicensed homes spur up. The first solution is not demolition. The ideal solution for random settlements or illegal settlements is really economic development. And there is great examples of this. You mentioned Medina as an example, but there is across Saudi. Once you start urban interventions and you do part of the area, then they will start and developing their own area as well, and the government will support. This is the ideal solution, and this has happened across the world. Once you get to, like you said, areas that have a hazardous safety issue to the citizen and resident, then demolition is the only solution. And this typically happens in highly dense areas that have a lot of unlicensed buildings in it. And once you get there, there is no other solution. You cannot fix it. It's like you said, the roads are too narrow, cars cannot enter, and demolition becomes, and they don't have the proper infrastructure anyway. So you have to demolish the buildings, fix the infrastructure, and then rebuild a master planned area. And this really all goes to kind of this new school that we're working with in Saudi Arabia in terms of urbanism and urban planning. We need to have regional plans for every region. We need to have local plans for each city. This gets rid of these things. And a lot of the things we spoke about during the show is the solution for informal settlements. When we talk about urban interventions, when we talk affordable homes, when we talk about infrastructure, all this will the problem will die out naturally. In some cases, extreme measures need to be taken, and rightly so. In other cases, we're doing a lot of work using citizen engagement, using the areas to working with the local residents to improve the quality of the areas they live in. But I assure you that in Jeddah, and I think the mayor told you himself, each one of those demolished homes was allocated a place to live, and this is part of the duty we do this. This is why it's a challenge. Huh? It's not every solution is easy to do or to fix. You have this. You don't want also to demolish and then build new settlements. You have to provide the right homes for them to live until their
transition period. Yeah.
Transition in.
Yeah.
But I think the whole center of government is doing a good job, and as a result of all the efforts that we're talking about over the last in this show, there has zero expansion of informal settlements over the last 3 years, and this is a tribute to affordable housing, the right local and regional plans, the compliance management and inspection, making sure that there's no expansion. All this is happening with this goal. I think maybe this is one of the reasons why the ministries were merged, because a key factor to informal settlement is this affordability of housing, and this has been resolved by the ministry over the last few years.
I've spoken to people that never thought that the issue of random settlement will ever be solved in Jeddah. Like, I know people who are more impressed that actually happened than the World Cup being hosted here, because it's such a pipe dream, because there were maybe 1 million people responsible in living in random settlements. And I remember going on Google Maps where you see the legitimate houses, and then it's clear. It's almost like the grid system of Manhattan, and then you see the random.
Yeah, and you see it's usually red brick homes, no paint. It's very clear. They are very, and it's purely an economic issue. Right? It's not anything else. It's an economic issue, and affordability is the key driver of this. And illegals that come, like you said, they stay. The country has amazing opportunities for income generation, and they stay, and they want their chance to succeed. And in some cases, you go back and you correct the status of the people that live there. You correct the standards of the houses that are being built. And these are steps you take. I think demolition is number 7 or 8. It's the last. It's the last step you want to take, because demolition also has risks, and it's not something that is the optimal solution. But in some cases, it's a must do. You cannot risk the safety of residents if the area is hazardous. And in those areas, 100% that was the case.
Yeah, I want to ask you, from all the things that you have been through, Your Excellency, what's a piece of advice that you are glad that you never listened to?
Oh, too many. I'm not good with listening to advice. Look, I think one time I interviewed with someone, and I didn't get the job because he thought I was too ambitious. I don't know if that's bad or good, but I think the advice is, I would flip the question and say what advice I would give. I think each one of us has his own way to carve his future out. It doesn't have to be my story or my way. It's your way. You have to do it your way. Some of us like to take risks. Some of us don't like to take risks. Some of us want to job security. Some of us want to live a different lifestyle. I think the decision in the end is it's a completely personal decision how you want to carve out your life. And whatever route you take, I think one advice is perseverance and authenticity. You have to be authentic with yourself, that this is what you want and this is your capabilities, and you have to persevere to achieve your goal. If it's not real, if you're not challenged by the goal you're going after, nothing in life that you feel joy and satisfaction from comes without a period of difficulty and challenges before. It's a fact. Inna ba'd al-usri yusra. There is no other way. Even if you have it easy and you do it, you're not going to feel the same joy as somebody that has been challenged, failed, and then succeeded. This is the way of the world. So if you're going through a hard time, rest assured, good times are on your way. If you're not, look for the hard times so you enjoy the good times.
Is there anything that you wish you had more time to do besides cold plunges?
No, I think we covered a lot of topics. I think one thing that just going back to 2016 when I read the vision and how that made me the first introduction to His Royal Highness, I just want to end by what I saw after once in the government and how I completed my view of His Royal Highness. And this is a story I love to tell. We had a meeting with His Royal Highness on design codes, design guidelines. And the day before, top minds globally were reviewing the presentation we were going to give to him. And we stopped at page, one of the interpretation of the code. Didn't seem right. We didn't know what was wrong. I remember the page number was 276. And we had a debate for like 15 minutes. And then we said, okay, leave it. Because it's the real interpretation of that code, of the architect's guideline that has been developed. We left it. Next day, we meet with His Royal Highness. 3 pages into the presentation, His Royal Highness says, go to page 276. And he pinpointed the mistake. He said, this is wrong. We said, yes, we know, but we decided to leave it because of the reasons I mentioned. I said, yeah, I know what's wrong with it. The architect it was inspired by the southern architecture of the region, not the whole region. Let him look at the north, and he actually pointed out specific sites that the architect should look at to complete his interpretation of the code. And this really tells you a lot of things. It's not just how diligent His Royal Highness is you have to feel comfortable and resting assured that the vision will be achieved. If he's on top of these kind of details, and it left me with 2 things, life lessons. First, the vision is a done deal. If we have a leader that gets involved in this level of diligence, then we're in good hands. And secondly is we must double down our effort to make sure that we live up to that standard. I mean, this is incredible. This is probably one of 50 meetings His Royal Highness had that day, and he got into that level of detail. To me, that was a life-changing moment. I don't know, might seem a bit, but for me, I couldn't believe, because we had paused, 15 minutes we discussed, and not only he recognized the issue, he gave us the solution. What more do you want out of a leader? Huh?
And him flipping through the presentation, he is the one that caught page 276.
Yeah, we were seeing him. He was listening and going through the presentation. And he stopped at that page.
I just want people to know that this wasn't his team that said, Your Royal Highness, by the way, there is...
We could see him on this.
He detected the issue.
Himself. Incredible. But this is the kind of man he is. Really incredible. Incredible. It's not a generational, it's a leader. It's a once-in-a-lifetime kind of leadership. I've never seen anything like this in my life.
We're lucky.
Very. Alhamdulillah.
I want to end on that point, and thank you so much for coming.
Great.
I really admire, and I think, and I witness everything that the municipality is doing to better their lives. I lived in Jeddah all my life, and I know what it was like and what we wanted, and now I see what we have, and I hear where we want to go. So I just really want to take my hat off for you, or take my igal off for you that I'm not wearing, and say thank you for the efforts that you're doing.
Bil'aks, it's like I told you earlier, it's not an effort, it's a privilege to serve. It's not a job, it's really a privilege for us to serve this country in any way we can. And thank you for hosting. It's great. And I want to congratulate you. You're also, mashallah alaik.
Thank you.
Pioneer in this, doing an English language podcast out of Saudi. Incredible. Been watching your shows for a while now.
Not everyone was happy with it in the beginning, and why is it in English? But I think with time, people are seeing, okay, there's need to export some English from Saudi Arabia.
Absolutely.
Western press, are not going to sing our praises. And and thank you for
We have
entrusting.
100 million tourists coming to Saudi. Most of them are not Arab speakers.
Yes, yeah.
You have to have an English.
And we're actually going to be, as of February 1st, we're going to be on the in-flight entertainment system of Saudiya,
Wallah.
who are a sponsor of the show.
Mabruk.
Yeah, thank you so
great.
much. That'll be a nice intro. They're definitely going to promote it on the in-flight entertainment system. But imagine a tourist who's never been to Saudi catches this episode en route to Saudi.
Fantastic.
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 But thank you again for entrusting us.
لا بالعكس, my pleasure.
And I really, really appreciated this conversation. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very
All
much.
the best. Thank you.